a lot of us, a lot of RTOs are getting a chance to look at all of their policies, their procedures, the way they're doing things in light of the new standards. And it's a chance, for a fresh start and an opportunity to do things much better. And it's like everyone's been forced to take their car in for a service. So that was the reasoning behind this analogy.
So true, Leonie.
And, we want to have a little bit of fun with this webinar, because I know, if you're anything like me, I've attended a lot of these, and it's great just to get yourself immersed in these new standards and you hear about things that you might have missed when you're reading. But it's this one is going to be very business focused, because, Sally is incredible. She comes with the knowledge of legislation like you won't believe, and you'll see that throughout this session. And I really come with that business focus of how do you implement this in the most economical, efficient way. So we've looked to combine those two strengths to give you something that you'll end up with some great takeaways from. So this is Sally and I. You probably recognise us. So Sally has been here, in this space for over 20 years, and so have I, but in a different way. So from government in auditing, even in non-state school accreditation, and then I moved into actually TEXA accreditation for a large RTO and tertiary education provider, and then from there a whole bunch of RTOs and a whole bunch of compliance. So it's a wealth of experience that's there for you to draw on. Sorry, guys. Okay, so the main thing that we see as being important is making compliance work for your business and not the other way around. So not that you're just always working to stay compliant, but that the compliance also works for the way that you work. And these new standards do give a lot more room for flexibility, and we'll be able to talk about that a bit today. And you'll get a really good sense of, how you can make these standards work for you. And throughout this session, you will hear us refer to, at times, the RTO Works RMS, which is our RTO management system for the revised standards for RTOs. Many of you here are probably members with us, with RTO Works, and you would have already purchased this resource. And this resource is basically all the policies, procedures, and forms you need to run your RTO, and all updated and compliant with the revised standards for RTOs. So for those of you that are here that have purchased this resource, we'd really love to know what you're loving about it and what you'd love to change about it, so you can pop that in the chat. But we'd also love to know, with everyone here, to give you an idea of what type of systems you might be working with. You can answer in that poll, which I can see many of you are. That's going very quickly. Yeah, and I definitely think that it's an excellent way to move forward quickly is to purchase a ready-made system that's going to work for your RTO under this new legislative requirement. Poll's still going, but I reckon that poll's evened out there. Yep, so some of you have purchased from RTO Works. A lot of you intend to. Well, that's great news. Purchase from another provider. Look, that's also a great option. I mean, custom building your own can sometimes also be your best option. It just depends what, every RTO is different. And yeah, sometimes if you're very specialized, very niche, there might be the updates that are best made by you, but sometimes it can save you a huge amount of time and money to purchase those resources ready-made, and then we can customize them for you, or you can customize them yourself as well. So it looks like we've got 14% that have purchased from us, 39% that intend to. That's fabulous news. 15% of purchase from another provider. Well, look, we'll take that. And I hope that they're as good as ours. And no, I've custom built my own. 32%. That's amazing work to everyone who's done that. I'm sure you've put in some hard yards to come up with those. And yeah, it will. In all those cases, it looks like most of you have actually got an option, which is excellent to hear. Okay. And we have another poll here. And that is, how confident are you that you will be ready for the revised standards for RTOs on the 1st of July 2025? Okay, the poll's looking pretty good. Look, the great news is it looks like most of you, looks around 61, 62% at the moment, it's changing rapidly, are somewhat confident. Some of you not so confident, and look, that's understandable. This is very, it's new legislation, and also there's a lot of work for a lot of people to do. It's going to be a work in progress. Some of you are unsure. Yep, I understand that for sure as well. And 19% at the moment are very confident. So that's excellent. And I'm sure, over time we'll all go through stages where, you feel your confidence levels will change depending on what's going on. Hopefully you can see those results on your end.
Yes, great, Leonie. We could see them. That was really good.
Right. Okay, so this is a good one. Of course, the only thing in life that certain is change, and that's certainly the case right now for the vet sector. It's moving from a prescriptive approach to an outcomes-focused approach. I'm sure you've seen all of these documents before, the outcome standards, the compliance requirements, and the credential policy. We will have Q&A at the end of this session, but also feel free to pop questions in the chat. We'll do our very best to get answers to you. We did have a great opportunity yesterday at the ITECA Brisbane Business, what is it? The ITECA 2025 RTO Business Summit. And we had Melanie Cox, the director from Regulatory Policy and Standards Implementation, presenting at that conference. And she did speak to the new standards and made it very clear that the way that these documents have been set up, the outcome standards, the compliance requirements, and the credential policy, is to enable the compliance requirements and the credential policy to be changed more quickly and easily at the government end. And having come from a government background myself, I can say that will be extremely helpful, but will also mean that the industry needs to be ready to change more quickly than it may have in the past. And we might not get word of rumbling with much lead time. So definitely always having an ear to the ground will be very valuable. And I'm going to get Sally to give us a summary of what these three documents, the outcome standards, the compliance requirements, and the credential policy mean for RTOs.
Thank you, Leonie. Yeah, so I mean, the outcome standards essentially focus on, I'm sure all of you know this, 4 quality areas. So we've got training and assessment, vet student support, the vet workforce, and governance. Well, I'll go into more detail about those shortly. The credential policy is obviously, for trainers and assessors and who are undertaking particular training and assessment activities or roles. And the compliance requirements sort of take out what we had in the old standard into a discrete document, and are things like, marketing and advertising requirements, AQF certification, student identifiers, and so on. So like Leonie said, they've been split up into those 3 documents because apparently it'll be more easily changeable. And the outcome standards and the credential policy can be found on the legislation.gov.au site, and the credential policy is housed on training.gov, which is sort of interesting. Yeah, so that's a sort of, very quick summary of it. And as I say, shortly, I'll go into a bit more detail in terms of thinking about, what are the main differences between the old and the new standards. And Leonie's just put a summary sheet up there. Leonie, you said yesterday that ASQA had advised that it would have final policy drafts, policy guidance in place by the end of the year. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. That's what Melanie Cox gave us the lowdown on, is that, yeah, we can expect that we will have a full library of those documents by the end of this year. That's their aim anyway. They're not making any promises, but it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, I've only really briefly looked at those guidance documents. I would hope that they're expanded out a little, to be honest, because when I looked at them, I don't know, personally, I didn't find them that helpful, but hopefully they'll be built on. And it'll be interesting as well because it's sort of like what's being looked at when we are being audited. How are the auditors going by the revised standards, or are they kind of looking at that can sometimes make it quite complicated if they're looking at the policy guidance as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so this little diagram here, I got this from the DWA draft policy guidance, and I think that it's quite useful because it really sets out what the outcome standards are sort of made up of. So obviously we've got that main quality area, training and assessment, and then it's broken up in this particular quality area into training and assessment. And then we've got the standards. So for example, 1.1 about training is engaging and so on. And then that's broken down into the actual performance indicators. So I think that's quite a neat little diagram that explains well what the outcome standards are all about.
Yeah, that's great. Where can people go to find this, Sally, if they want to have a look at this document?
Yeah, it's on the DWA site. Yeah. Someone says as well, are you talking about the practice guides? I'm talking about, the ASQA guides, and there's the policy guidance from
practice guides.
Practice guides,
Practice guides, yeah.
Okay, and someone says, can we get a copy of the PowerPoint? I'm sure that'll be fine, won't it, Leonie?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to make the recording available of this session, and also, I think we'll be able to make PowerPoint.
Yes, and Dean's saying he believes ASQA's practice guides will naturally evolve as they conduct the first lot of their performance assessments on RTOs. Yes, absolutely. I can see some, a few grey areas jumping out there already. Yeah. That will come to that, but there's an interesting one that Leonie will talk about in terms of training and assessment strategies. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, so we know that these revised standards for RTOs will be in place from the 1st of July. We want to know how we're going to implement them. And I'm sure you're all working on that or have got many solutions already, which we'll hear about in this session. And for this session, we're not going to be going through every line of the standards. And I'm sure you've all done that to death, and you probably never want to see them again, but you're going to be seeing them for a lot longer. So we won't do that to you, but what we will do is give a snapshot of the major changes as we see them and what those might mean for your business. So on that note, Sally, could you take us through the significant changes that we're seeing in quality area 1 of the revised standards for RTOs?
Yeah, sure. So I'll do it on a standard by standard basis, but not going into the performance indicators, but looking at actually at the standards here. And it will be brief because we only have 45 minutes, and in our future webinars, we'll build on these areas. So for example, if you look at standard 1.1 about training is engaging and well structured and so on, something interesting there is that the standards no longer refer to the amount of training. So I think that's good, because that was always quite difficult in some respects. So that's good, but also equally the standards don't refer to the fact that even that a TAS is needed. So Leonie will talk about that, and particularly in terms of our the session from ASQA yesterday that was attended, and what they said on that. There's some in terms of there are some subjective things in that standard in terms of engaging and well structured. These are the type of things that we will start to encounter at audits. What does engaging mean? In terms of standard 2 about essentially industry consultation, there's not much difference there. The main things that I can see that have been made different is that there's been the removal of the requirement to complete a range of industry consultation strategies, but nonetheless, I think it would still be best practice to do that. And then there's also a focus in that standard on how you identify which employer and community representatives are suitable. The 1.3 about assessment system fit for purpose. I think the main thing there that's quite different now is the notion of having to quality review assessments before use. And again, through these webinars, we'll explore that a bit more. And it will bring up questions about, who does that review? Is it something that you as the RTO do, or you do get externals? And then we've got to balance, cost as well there. As you all probably know, standard 1.4, the principles of assessment and the rules of evidence, the definitions have changed somewhat. And again, in future webinars, we'll explore that. A main thing there as well is that assessments now have to be kept for 2 years after the students finish their training product. Things like AQF documentation, student identifiers, and this is now linking to the compliance requirements, remain the same. Just moving on to the last few standards of quality area 1, standard 1.5. There are changes to validation requirements. We've no longer got that rule around, must 50% in the first 3 years. And it's a bit more, it seems more flexible there. And I'm kind of glad that they've got rid of that, within 3 years, because I think that was quite confusing. Standard 1.6 and 1.7, that's around credit transfer and RPL. And I think the main difference there is we've got some change in wordings, which is, that you, instead of saying that you must provide it, they say that students are supported to have that. So I think that's quite different. And say for international providers, that probably helps us in terms of recognition of prior learning, because often auditors will ask for RPL tools, which, most of international providers will never use. So this kind of gives them some more flexibility. Look, if someone comes along and wants RPL, we can give it, but we don't have to buy a full set of tools that we're not going to use. And then the final one in that group, about facilities, resources and equipment being fit for purpose. I think one major change that I can see there is around ongoing suitability and safety. So putting systems in place to make sure you check that ongoing suitability and safety, and risk management is a change there as well. So yeah, super quick overview there. And again, we'll explore these more in the upcoming webinars.
Yeah, that's great, Sally. Thank you so much. You are a font of knowledge on this topic. And to complement that, I have looked into a few things of examples that RTOs are already making to meet the requirements of this quality area. So one of them is rebuilding TAS for outcomes. So, overhauling that TAS document and linking activities to outcomes and not just unit content. So that might also include things like including a learner engagement strategy, industry consultation logs in the TAS document, and digital delivery justifications. Industry co-designed simulations, so partnering with major employers to co-design simulated assessment tasks, using actual case files and workplace software. Having a centralized validation calendar to incorporate the new requirements for validation, and reimagining the way that they're tracking validation. I know a lot of people might use an Excel spreadsheet, which can be fine, but there's a lot of new software coming out. Most recently, I used Teams Planner to do to track validation and also continuous improvement. So there's it's great to relook at your systems at this time and go, how can we do this better? And what software do we have that's got great reporting requirements that we can use in an ASQA audit? Because obviously, first and foremost in your mind should be what evidence do I have if ASQA comes knocking? That's certainly the way I always approached my compliance management roles. Let me just have a quick look here. So also looking to, because obviously RPL is another area that Melanie Cox brought up yesterday, and ASQA very clearly has looked at providers offering RPL, particularly providers doing 100% RPL, and they are very much under the microscope. So if you do offer a lot of, or do actually deliver a lot of training via RPL or issue qualifications under that RPL banner, you want to make sure you're doing it correctly, because it is absolutely under the microscope and will continue to be for quite some time. So some providers are introducing RPL moderation and peer review, which I would say probably should be part of systems now. But you definitely want to ensure that consistency and fairness across RPL decisions. And also upskilling trainers in that RPL specific assessment so that there is bias minimization. So you want your trainers to be very confident in making RPL judgments. And obviously that will be very dependent on what they have to make the judgment on. So looking at that entire RPL process is very important.
Thanks, Leonie. Just quickly, because we do want to make sure that we run to time. That interesting thing that came out of the ASQA session yesterday about TASs. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is the what I put into ChatGPT, because what we did hear yesterday from Melanie is that you do not need a TAS. And I think that is sort of a buzz sentence that ASQA is putting out there at the moment. But what she did quickly qualify that sentence with, but you need something just like a TAS that does what a TAS does, but you basically don't need to call it a TAS. And I had some fun with ChatGPT recently and just said, okay, tell me ChatGPT about what's an alternative to a traditional TAS. And it came up with the TDAIP. So you could have a TDAIP, or you could have something else that works in place of a TAS, but essentially it's going to be a TAS by a different name. And as I said this morning, it's a bit similar to your audits being called performance assessments. It's a different name for the same thing. You still need to find a way. You still need to find a way to group this information in a document or evidence it when ASQA asks to see it, basically. So,
It's also about having a overarching map of how you're going to run your training and assessment. So I think for me, you know, I like the TAS. I don't see any reason why you'd change that. Yeah. That's right. Someone's asking, can you still call it a TAS? Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely. You can call it whatever you want, even a TDAIP.
Yeah, I mean, I would keep it the same. I would just, what we've done in the RMS is we've updated certain sections to meet the revised standards. So I would just be, if you were doing it, you know, your own custom ones, I'd be looking through certain sections of your TAS and updating them. So for example, things like adding in a section about, you know, how you're going to make sure learners have got digital literacy. Anyway, Leonie, shall we move on to the next one so that we can get through that? But I think Auburn's going to quickly put a poll through now as well before we quickly move on to the next one. Right, here we go. We've got a poll now. Biggest concerns for the standards. Obviously, these ones are, you know, you might have others, but if you could just complete that poll there about what your biggest concerns are, that would be great.
And Sally, perhaps while everyone's answering the poll, there's another question that's come through from Susan.
Yes, that's right. Volume of learning. Well, you see, the volume of learning was never referenced in the original standards. You know, that's from the AQF. So that was always, you know, that was one of those things that you know, you would get pulled up on an audit because, you know, it's sort of the only guidance that we have. But yeah, I've got mixed feelings about that. It's a useful way of justifying a particular duration, but then it's also awkward if you want to run a course that's shorter. And so there's other ways you can justify it, such as, you know, industry thinks it should be delivered in this way. So on balance, I would say that you know, you don't need to have it in there. Sometimes I'll put it in there as a justification, but you know, it can or it cannot be in there. But interesting question. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the results of the poll here, Sally.
Yes.
So we've got 17% are most worried about an increased compliance burden. 23% are most concerned about understanding the new intent-based approach. 20% concerned about the resource development and updates. And 9% staff capability and training. That's good news, I think. And differing interpretations of the standard, that's 31%. So that's probably the biggest area of concern, is that, I guess, because these are quite open-ended standards compared to what we have had.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You know, even what we were just talking about with the TAS, you know, like say you don't have a TAS and then someone says that you should have a TAS, those types of things.
Absolutely. And yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, and I remember a while ago, one of the things that was talked about was the need for, you know, strong training within, you know, ASQA to make sure that auditors are all on the same page, but we'll see. It's an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
Okay, let's quickly whip through the other areas so that we can make sure we finish on time. So just looking at the quality areas of vet student support, these next three quality areas are shorter than the quality area one. Standard 2.1 about access to clear and accurate information doesn't really differ to what was in the old standard, just minor wording changes. I think probably, you know, one of the major differences in there is really around, you know, as a whole, the use of well-being. And I'm seeing that lots of clients are starting to, you know, look at that and what that actually means. You know, many of the requirements that are now in the compliance requirements, like prepaid fees, are the same. I think it's interesting, standard 2.2 about vet students being advised about the suitability of the training product and the whole LLN digital literacy thing is particularly interesting for CRICOS providers, because with IELTS, say your entry requirements are IELTS and, you know, finishing year 10 or 12, and that includes maths, then for me, you know, that is enough to satisfy language literacy and numeracy requirements. But I remember being at a conference where David Garnis, who was obviously with ASQA previously, said that, you know, he wouldn't think it was. So, you know, there's a interesting, you know, debates there around LLN for international students. Yeah, so I'm going to just finish there on that one in the interest of time, but they were some things that was, you know, that seemed different. So Leonie, given we've got 6 minutes left, maybe just a couple of, you know, changes to meet the requirements of this quality area for us.
Yeah, so I can go over some of these really quickly. One of them is enabling an AI-enabled learner support chatbot, so a 24/7 chatbot on the LMS to answer common enrolment, LLN, and assessment questions. So this is, yeah, a bit more out of the box thinking about how we can support students. Personalized pre-enrollment info packs, so rather than generic handbooks, more tailored documentation with course expectations, trainer bios based on their chosen course, so they've got that that feeling of more personal relationship with their trainers. There's been mention of things like a First Nations cultural mentor program, because obviously First Nations people are mentioned for the first time in the standards, you know, as a consideration as a particular group that they want to see included. And also, I mean, obviously it includes everybody too. These you know, it's about not, you know, not excluding anybody. Early intervention for at-risk learners, because you know, at this time we are, you know, RTOs are being asked to monitor progression of all students. So CRICOS providers would be very familiar with this, with monitoring progression, but not, you know, not so for many providers who deliver exclusively to domestic students. So we'll talk more about that in future webinars. And another one is neurodiversity access packs. So obviously neurodivergence is a big buzzword at the moment, and obviously the world's come a long way in the way that we can work with neurodivergence. So a lot of providers are skilling up in that area and putting together resources to encourage students to enroll with them and ensure them that they'll be looked after. So it's a marketing strategy and also works really well with this support piece.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Leonie. All right, we've got 4 minutes left. So with quality area 3, the vet workforce, I think the only thing I want to say there is that, you know, I think there's a change here that, you know, in terms of trainers having an understanding of current industry practices, and that sort of moves away from the idea that trainers need to be working. So I think that's really interesting. So that's all I really wanted to say there. And again, we'll explore these more. And we had the early changes to the standards anyway. So, you know, there were changes last year in any case. So Leonie, examples of changes to meet the requirements of this area.
Yeah, so obviously for the first time we're looking at professional development for the entire workforce, the entire RTO workforce. So a lot of providers are implementing different strategies to, first of all, look at the needs of their workforce, because obviously if you're going to be investing money, particularly in PD, you want to make sure you're doing it in the right areas. So really mapping those skills across the entire RTO workforce and finding a way to do that. And workforce succession planning, particularly with trainers. I've heard from so many RTOs so many times, we can't get enough trainers. You know, it's so difficult. They get, especially I've come from building industry, mining industry, where they get paid, these people get paid huge amounts of money in their industry. So luring trainers across can be very difficult. So, you know, ways to make sure that they can always ensure they have enough trainers to deliver what they need to deliver, and succession planning. So making sure that you've got a trainer pipeline using assistant trainer roles, and also with the the credential policy now. Also, there's more scope for the way you might use supervision, etc. And also going back, you know, there's some things that may make that easier. So definitely worth considering there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, then. So final one, governance. This is obviously quite new, although there are some things that were elsewhere in the old standards and in the legislation, you know, fit and proper person requirements and so on. I think one of the big changes there now is material changes being now required to be informed within 10 days. And then I think one of the big changes there is standard 4.3 about identifying risks to student, staff and the RTO itself. So those are quite different. So Leonie, again, just to finish off, examples of changes to make meet the requirements of that area.
Yeah, so, you know, if your RTO doesn't already have something along the lines of a monthly check-in, I'd highly recommend that you start doing that and start recording some very basic meeting minutes on what you are doing, particularly in the compliance space, and keeping records of these. You know, I know that we're talking to RTOs here from, you know, they're a team of 3 to a team of hundreds. So you can imagine there's a broad spectrum of the types of governance that goes on. But, you know, at the basic level, having a meeting once a month to make sure you're recording what you're doing in the compliance space is really important. Doing a risk heat map dashboard is something I've also heard of. So, you know, once again, looking at new technologies, incorporating Power BI that tracks compliance risks and also gives you metrics on those types of issues. Having a continuous improvement evidence library, so you can have something created in a SharePoint site or an MS Teams planner where your staff can submit improvement ideas. And also it's a lot more impactful. You can make these types of softwares, it's a bit more interactive and exciting than an Excel spreadsheet, which I know a lot of providers might use for continuous improvement. So looking at those new technologies, I think that these new standards have given that opportunity to just have a look and see if you could do things in a more interesting, efficient and evidence-driven way, I suppose.
Great, thanks so much, Leonie. Okay, it's 11:46. We're 1 minute over. That's not bad.
It's worth staying for.
Well done. Very good. Especially with the technical difficulties.
Yes,
Well done.
sorry about that.
We are going to share a free resource with you. I think it will be sent out to you tomorrow. We're just finalizing it today. But what it is a mapping document from the old standards to the revised standards for RTOs. I know you've been told it could not be done. ASQA, we've heard this from ASQA many times. They're not mappable. We're not giving you a mapping document. Well, ASQA won't give it to you, but we will. And Sally has worked very hard on this. And this is why we didn't go into all that nitty-gritty detail in this particular presentation, because you will get that document and will support you with any policy gap analysis that you are doing. And we've already done this.
Wonderful. Thanks, Leonie. Thanks, Sally. That was great. Even for a sales guy,
we got our next webinar is happening on the 6th of June. And we hope you've enjoyed this one, and we won't have technical difficulties next time. But yes, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I can't believe there's 200 something people out there. I've just pretended that it's just one, but it's been fun. I'm going to hand over to Milo now. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Leonie. Thank you both. So everyone, the webinar is officially finished. So if you do have prior commitments and arrangements to go to, please, you're welcome to log off now. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you at the next one. If you do have some time to stay on, you're please welcome to. We are, Sally and Leonie are staying on for a Q&A, and Brooke and I will jump into a breakout session to cover off civil construction design, which has been hugely popular over the last couple of months. If you would like to join the breakout session, at the bottom of your screen, you will see a little pop-up that should say join breakout room. So if you click on that join breakout room, civil construction design Q&A, and you click on join, Brooke is waiting there to answer questions, and I'll shortly jump across as well. Aside from that, I'll just quickly say that the rest of the webinar series for our members was completely complimentary, and for non-members, there are 2 webinars that are complimentary, or you can purchase a series for $100 to cover off all 6. But otherwise, yes, we're happy to see you next time. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks very
I'll
much.
hand over back to you guys.
Thank you. Okay, so Leonie, should we have if people want to ask questions, should it be in the chat, or can people take their mutes off and we do it?
If you're there, or is Auburn there? Auburn, are you there? Are we able to unmute people, or
let me
if we can get people who put their hand up or something, and we can?
Yes, I think that's going to be the best way to run this Q&A. If you have a question, if you could just raise your hand, it's just in that bottom navigation banner on your Zoom screen, and then we can go through and select you, and then you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Or also feel free to put them in the chat if you'd rather not speak into the webinar.
No, I'm going to scroll through this chat and see what we've got.
Oh, so Samantha says, what does ASCA expect to see within a business plan? So with that, Samantha, obviously then that sort of we're looking there at governance. So what I would say in answer to that question is the business plan should have a clear organisation chart. It says in standard 4.2 that roles and responsibilities of the staff and third parties must be clearly defined and understood. I don't think you necessarily need to have all the you could have like a summary position within your business plan as part of the organisation chart, with then that's supported through position descriptions that are separate documents. So I think that would be the main thing that links to the standards about what should be included in the business plan. That would be my feeling. So we've got someone who says, Cowper, any suggestions how we can assess employability skills prior to enrolment? So could you possibly expand what you meant by that? Obviously in the old days, we used to have employability skills, but I was just, could you either unmute yourself, Cowper, or just give me a bit more information about what you meant there? In the meantime, I'll move on to the next question. Is there any changes to the third party notification period? No, there isn't. Yeah. And Shruti said she's looking forward to seeing the mapping document. Yes, that did take quite a long time. I went through it by standard, and also talk about how you could demonstrate each sort of performance indicator as well as the main differences. Yes, so Abdur said no 50% within the first 3 years, and what's the new rule? So the standard says basically that each training product has to be validated every 5 years. I think that's really interesting there, because on the ASCA website there's that fact sheet on validation, and pretty much they were saying 2 units per training product, but I always kind of think that again the standard talks about risk and all that kind of thing. So if you've got a more risky qualification, just an example, diploma of community services, then I would expect that you would need to do more more validation, and you would need to focus on, say, the riskier units, for example, ones that incorporate work placement. Shruti says, will an RTO be expected to demonstrate compliance with both SRTOs 2015 and 2025, should they be audited in June 25? We've received advice from ASPA for our initial applications that they should be ready from the 1st of May to the new standards. I'm actually not sure of the approach they're taking. Leonie, did they say anything about that at the website, at the session yesterday at all?
Just unmuting myself here. About what, Sally?
If you were audited in June, would you be expected to comply with the old or the new standards?
In June this year, the new standards they didn't actually say anything about this, but
I mean, I would imagine that you'd be audited against the old standards, given that they're not implementable from the 1st of until the 1st of July, but there probably would be some.
they'll probably want to see what your plan is.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a very difficult time for anyone caught right now.
Oh, June next year, you're saying, Shruti. Yeah, well, then you would be audited. In my view, that would be audited against the new standards.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions there? Don't think so.
No, there was not too many questions. I mean, we will definitely be able to go into a lot more depth in the future webinars with certain areas, and be able to give you a bit more practical exercises and things you can take back to your RTO as well. But
so the next one's about training and assessment strategies, isn't it?
Good question.
Yeah, I think
the next one.
Yeah. That's right. So Dean's saying the SRTOs will, from the 1st of July, they'll no longer be in place. That's right. Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thanks. With that, we have had, some consultants who are in the, stakeholders group, the ASCOS stakeholders group. They've been advising RTOs that in June 2026, if an RTO were to be audited, they would be expected to demonstrate compliance for the last 1 year. And so for the previous 1 year, so that previous 1 year would include the 2015 SRTOs as well. So that was what they were driving at. So I'm wondering if, what's your take on it? And you said that you'd expect it to be the revised standards. So that's hopefully that should prevail.
I think so, because I mean it would sort of seem, kind of silly to to do it any other way, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much, of an imposition on an RTO to demonstrate this kind of dual compliance. Not that they wouldn't be compliant, but given the kind of huge investment, undertaking, and time that RTOs have put in these last few months, there are bound to be gaps. No RTO is perfect.
No.
Yeah. The other question I have for you, Sally, is what's your understanding of a training product? Of course, the definition
Well, my understanding of a training product, and I have seen it defined somewhere, that it actually means a qualification, a unit of competency, and a skill set. So that makes that validation definition awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I recently had an RTO client who said that they had interpreted the training product as a qualification. And so in the 5-year cycle, they would be auditing a few units. And I said, well, that's not enough, but apparently that got passed in a recent re-registration audit.
Well, if you look at the ASQA fact sheet on validation, it pretty much says you can do 2 per qualification.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how does that fit in to, and especially the fact sheet is, you know, for the SRTOs 2015,
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
the review prior to delivery was not such a mandated thing. So I just don't understand how we are going to interpret this, and that's why
Yeah.
I liked it that you had included the apprehension that RTOs feel about the interpretation of these standards
Yeah.
as one of the biggest worry areas.
Yeah, that's it. So for you know, for example, for assessment quality review, that the way I read it is that, you know, every assessment's got to be reviewed before use. Yeah, that's how I read it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, with the validation, I think that yeah, it's open to interpretation.
Yeah. And the new standards don't really indicate that they want, you know, RTOs to use the ASQA calculator for the moderation activity, the validation of assessment judgments. Did you have get that sense at all?
Say that again, sorry, Shruti.
Oh, the revised standards don't really indicate that they want RTOs to use the ASQA calculator.
No, that's right. No, it's kind of much more general now, which is kind of good as well, because I mean, that calculator, you know, it seemed to have such a, it would predict, you know, the results would be a very high number of assessments. And as a former auditor, when I used to do, you know, audits, I would really literally need to see 2 or 3 assessments to see what the patterns were. You can see them straight away, you know, you can. So for me, yeah, doing these large sample sizes was never, never a good idea. It's way too time consuming. So
agree.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sally.
Well, no worries. So just had probably a couple of questions finish off. So Sunita says, we've noticed that many providers using Sonder as part of student wellbeing support. Yeah, that's right. Look, you know, that everyone can decide how best to do it. So there's no need for you to use that. You just do wellbeing, you know, in your own way that works for your students. Yeah, so no need to use particular, you know, companies or systems. There's probably one final question. Would all our training resources and documentation need revision? In my opinion, no. I just think the TAS has to, and we've included in the RMS a new template for TASs, that the TAS needs to, at a high level, you know, say how you've ensured that your training is engaging and well structured, for example. So I don't think you need to do any revisions to your actual learning resources, just things like your TAS that talk about that. And Vivek, you know, you'll see that in the new template in the RMS. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. All right, lovely. Well, thank you so very much, and I'm glad that you all stayed on for the Q&A. That was great to get those questions, and thank you so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon, I hope. Thank you. Thanks very much. I'll end the meeting now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.